Hey everybody, how you doing? Dave Fennoy here. Another Wednesday, another Ask Dave Fennoy Anything, and I just wanted to show off my team. I probably should have on Dodger blue because the Dodgers won the World Series, but I saw this. I thought it was cool, and you can get your name on the back with and my number is VO. Anyway, let's talk voiceover because that's what we're here for, not for me to show off my wardrobe. How's everybody doing? I'm finding in this pandemic now, I am getting more last minute jobs, more last minute auditions than ever before. They know we're at home, or should be, and they just want it, and they want it now. Also, when I'm teaching sometimes and people make a mistake or they're having a hard time getting it, I had a young lady today broke down in tears because she was being hard on herself. You know what? When you're taking a class, when you're in a coaching session, that is the place to fail. That is the place to get all the mistakes out and not worry about being judged. We're judging you, but we're trying to make you better or help you become better. Find your real self. And speaking of real self, that brings me to my guest today. Good friend of mine. He has been, and I think continues to be, a voiceover actor. But I get the feeling from some of the conversations I've had with him over the last couple of years that teaching is becoming his thing, and he's got something in his teaching that he calls the true tell. And I want you to know how highly I think of Dave Walsh, that I have taken workshops from him. So without further ado, my buddy Dave Walsh, how you doing, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Real good. You got the green screen with nothing behind it.
Nothing behind it. Usually I have something behind it, but tonight we're just going, outer space. So there you go. But I have to say, just kind of first of all, it's so great to be here with you and really compliment you on how great this show is, and the fact that
Thank
you
you.
bring so many great people to the field. And I said this to Chuck and Stacy when I was on their show several years ago, that people like yourself, people like Chuck, and people like the middle class podcast, all these different DOBS. What you guys bring to the industry is so unique and so valuable and so valued. I want to thank you for. I think it's just really awesome. People take the time to create it.
Well, you know what? Thank you, but I really enjoy this. It really is fun for me to do. So thanks, but I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah, so am I. I love it, man. It's great.
Well, listen, this true tell, do tell about the true tell.
Well,
How'd you come up with that?
It came out of a dark period. I think we may have talked about this, you and I, a few times, and I was really reticent about talking about this to anybody at all, because I figured the second that I told people what had happened to me, that it would just be kind of the death of my career. About 12 years ago, I started to have a problem with my voice. I had really enjoyed an incredibly successful career in every area of voiceover, as you have, and so we've been really, really blessed. But I started to have problems projecting my voice. I couldn't figure out why. And problems with words became problems with sentences, etc. And eventually I found out that I was strangling my vocal. And it wasn't anything that anybody had taught me to do. It was just the fact that I thought I needed to create a certain sound to be successful. The stories I was telling were always true, but the voice I put on top of it to compete was successful, but eventually my body rejected it. It just kind of gave up and said, you're done.
I'm sorry, your voice isn't supposed to sound like this.
Oh, I'm just so sorry, you're out. So it created such a phobia for me and a state of depression that I finally found a speech pathologist in West LA who told me that I was speaking in the wrong part of my voice, that I was using a voice that was what we called inauthentic. He said that I had a vocal identity about my voice that it needed to sound a certain way to be, here's our words, authoritative, sexy, confident, trustworthy, whatever it is. But you're putting that sound on top of the storytelling, and that's what you think people want.
Okay, voice actors, hold on for voice actors, raise your hands if you think you may have done this.
I think we all have.
I think we all have.
And to that point, I started to realize, I'll be honest with you, Dave, I didn't tell this to you. I didn't tell this when I was working with Debbie Cope. I wasn't telling this to CESD or ICM or to anyone or to Atlas. I wasn't telling because I figured if I did, it was the demise of my career. So I kept it in the closet for years. I started to coach actors to feel better about myself and to, quite frankly, make a few extra bit of coin. But what I started to realize was other actors were doing exactly what we just talked about. They weren't strangling the vocal cords, they were sounding inauthentic. So I started to realize there was more to this coaching thing that might be a little different for me because of the history of that. So over time, I've really refined this program to really solidify it down to the key words of the true tell. And the definition of the true tell, as some of you guys in your audience might know, is your 100% opinion about every single thing you talk about. Yeah. Because in the end, what the buyers are looking for from us is truth. They're not looking for the sound. They're looking for you to tell a story, your point of view, your approach, backed up by the sound of your voice.
One of the things I've always found is sometimes you get into voiceover because somebody told you you have a beautiful voice. And there are a lot of beautiful voices, both men and women, in voiceover. And I get people that come over, yeah, well, they told me I have a beautiful voice, it should do voiceover. And I'm like, maybe. And typically what we hear is, we hear that voice that's connecting with us. We're not thinking about the connecting part. We're thinking about, wow, that voice. And the truth of the matter is, I think the more beautiful your voice, the faster bad acting shows up.
Yeah, I think so.
So if the one thing that I like to get across to people is, it's not about what your voice sounds like. It's about connecting with people here and here. Yeah. And that has to come from the truth of what you're saying.
It does, because in real life, when we walk the planet, you wouldn't have conversations with Mo, you wouldn't have conversations with the kids or with anybody in the world if it wasn't connected.
Yeah.
When we cross that threshold into the booth in front of that mic, all of a sudden, we think we need to sound a certain way to be trusted, believable, bankable, valued. So we're going to put our best foot forward to say, well, I know how this promo is supposed to sound, how this commercial is supposed to sound, because I know how it's supposed to sound. And then the note that comes back is, yeah, you know, Dave, it's a little stiff. It's a little, just talk to me.
Yeah.
And I've said to directors before, it's really hard to tell an actor to talk to you and they don't even know the purpose of why they're saying what they're saying.
Yeah.
And to your point, if the voice is really beautiful, you fall into that false sense of security via sound much more quickly.
Yeah. Hold on, let me bring a note up here. Randy Thomas just piped in and said, hi. So have I, Dave. Dave Walsh is impeccable at getting to the heart of the matter.
Thank you, Randy.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and you talk about chops. That lady has chops.
Yeah. Let's see. Somebody else. Let's see. Myron. I got a chance to do some classes with Dave W., and it was my first step from transitioning from the radio dude.
Oh, yeah.
Man. I came out of that. I was a radio guy for a decade in San Francisco. And once you train that muscle to do that, and you kind of get into this thing, and that becomes your identity. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? And I remember after I'd been in voiceover for a while, and some of my old radio buddies, you're doing this voiceover thing, man. Why don't you help me do that voiceover thing? And well, first of all, you got to let it go of the puke thing, the radio voice, and because a lot of this is more intimate. Oh, that's okay. I can make it intimate. It's like, oh, no.
You're like, no, you don't know. You're trapped in a Twilight Zone. You can't get out of it because the thing with radio, and I have so many performers that I work with that are coming out of radio, and using Randy as a perfect example is that Randy, yourself, several of the great people that came out of radio have the pipes, but you also have there's a depth and a gravitas to your voice that you've used in broadcast for so long. What we do in voiceover is invert that, where using the foundation as exclusivity, something that's upscale, that there's dynamic quality to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a way that Randy, now working with Nightline and what she's done with the Academy Awards, et cetera, there's an elegance to her read. And the thing she's done for ABC News is an elegance to that. So much of what you brought to the work is taking that broadcast quality of radio and inverting that into
bringing it into yourself.
Bring it into yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So until radio jocks, guys and gals can do that, they're going to continue to do this. They're going to continue to shout it out until they learn how to invert it.
Plus the bad habits of local radio spots written by a sales guy at the radio station that's price points, directions to a place, phone numbers, and no human connection. I remember somebody I was working with coming out of radio, and I said, "Well, we're going to learn how to do commercials. I've done thousands of commercials,
done thousands of these."
And it's like, yeah, but it's a little different.
Totally.
I've got another question here. Laura chats, how do you make yourself sound authentic when you do not relate to the spot you're working on?
Love it. Beautiful question. Thank you for your question. And this happens to so many of us. I say to clients all the time, if you take every script that's available in the United States in a month's time, let's say there's 800, random number, every format of voiceover, union and non-union, okay? It's physically, spiritually, creatively impossible for you, Laura, to be able to tell every one of those stories yourself because there's diversity in the world. So using acting chops, because this business is voice acting and not voice speaking. So if you can't tell that story, is there someone in your world who can tell it? Because in the end, what the buyers are looking for is truth and connection. They're not looking for you to fabricate it. So the truth is, they will know when you know, and they will know when you don't. So the key to this is finding the core, finding that absolute truth of, if you can't tell the story, let's pass the buck to a character that you know. Someone maybe in your personal professional life, someone that's a part of your world who can't tell it.
Interesting because so often my conversation with somebody is, okay, we're talking about video games maybe, but sometimes commercials. Okay, this is not you. This is not really, you're not that age. You're not, your level of education is something different. Let's look, who do you know? Who's in your family? Who did you grow up with? Do you have a cousin, your mom, your grandma, your grandpa? Somebody who reminds you of what this is. Bring that. Yeah, exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the thing that we don't remember is when it comes to video games, let's talk about the world that you live in so much day in and day out. Video games and animation is part of that amazing career. When you create these characters, the subtext of those characters has to be completely formed before you even open your mouth in front of the microphone, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What people tend to forget about with commercial and with promo and narration, run the list down, the thing that people love about video games and animation, they consider it to be an escape. So that they live inside the character and they're impervious to judgment. So when they get a note from a director, it doesn't hurt as much personally sometimes as it does if it's a piece of commercial or a piece of promo or a piece of e-learning, because there's more of the raw vulnerability of the you where they're asking for you. what people forget is you have the option and the luxury of creating characters for those formats of voiceover as much as you do for video games.
As a matter of fact, you can't help but do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We learn styles. Often I'm working with somebody, and it's not just about unlearning, say, the radio announcer style, because that's something you learn to do, and not necessarily unlearn it, but learn to do something else. Learn to find another character in you, something that's more, hopefully, more real. But that's where you always want to come from, someplace that's real and soulful, and that people will connect with that character. Often in character work, I always say, look, be the character first. Be the character first, then worry about the words.
Absolutely, because once you actually create that world, that full world, that full color world, three-dimensional world of that character, and then inviting us into that world, you can't invite us into it until we perform.
Yeah.
You just can't. And it's being vulnerable enough to let yourself do it.
I've got a question for you. What do you think some of the biggest mistakes voice actors make in a career?
I think that they are impatient. I think that there is a need and a want to have it all fast. I think that you're talking about careers that have been established, or voice actors across their careers?
Well, I think it could be both. I totally agree with you. A lot of people that want to start doing voiceover, sometimes they come with the idea, well, I've got a great voice, I should be able to do this and make a lot of money fast. And often I say, look, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. How do we get on the radio? Oh, it was me. I had a woman I worked with in radio years ago. Before I left radio, about 1992, I was working at a jazz station here in town. I was a morning guy. She did middays. And about August, she'd say, oh, Dave, you got to help me get my voiceover thing together so I can make some of that Christmas money. And no matter how often I said, look, this isn't something you just jump in and jump out of. This is a career. I'm hanging on to radio right now while I'm getting this going. And you're going to have to spend some time. It's not just make a demo, throw it out there, and make some money. This is a long-term career move. If you're a movie star, you might get some voiceover work on the side, some animation work on the side. But for most of us, we journeymen, hard hat voiceover people, it's work, and it's constantly staying abreast of what's going on in the biz.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And this kind of goes back to what you said at the beginning of the session of the right now I'm in the show. I just forget where I am.
You're in that green room.
I'm in that green room.
Which means you could be anywhere. Wow.
I could be.
Dude, that's deep, man. That's deep.
Crazy. What you said initially about having worked with me, and I have to say again publicly that the honor everybody, when Dave wanted to come and work with me, it was such an honor for me to have someone who is so well established and is so successful, still want to learn from someone else, and who, I mean, as a coach himself, he's, so well known and so successful. But to Dave's point earlier, you never stop learning. You never stop, any of us at any level. And I've had other established performers want to come and work as well. And the honor is just crazy. But I'm the same way, where you really don't ever want to get complacent in your career where you think you're going to coast forever. That there's going to be a point where it's going to evolve. Industry, hello COVID, is going to shift. The number of people, I got to tell you, a number of established performers in LA who didn't have Source Connect, who didn't know what it was, and needed to create a learning curve so fast because their agents told them, if you don't have Source Connect and have the studio broadcast quality, you're not going to continue to work for the foreseeable future. So it's staying, as you said, staying ahead of that curve as much as you can.
Tell me about voice actors and curiosity.
Oh, well, that's my biggest thing. I think you may have done some research. Son of a gun. Yeah, curiosity, man. It's like always being curious about your career, always being curious about what the changes, what the trends are. How can I improve my career? How can I improve if I have agents? How can I improve the relationship with those agents or managers? If I'm on pay to plays, how to graduate to the next level. Um, it's always understanding that in 2020 and 2021 and beyond, until we go, even when we go back to studios, however that's going to look, you never, ever want to stop being curious about your career because there are other people behind you that are looking to rise to the challenge. There are other people that are going to work a little bit harder, a little bit more specifically, and you want to be on top of your game all the time. And that includes curiosity. You know, I spend so much time recording promos, commercials, and spending time. You know, my husband would rather, you know, we fly through the commercials, but I do my research. Every probably 3 times a year, I'll record all the promos of all the networks and go through them network by network by network to listen to shadings, changes going on. You know, and so I want to work in a certain area of voiceover, and you don't have a lot of experience, get educated.
Yeah.
Reach out to Dave Fennoy, reach out to other people that have worked in this area or continue to work in it. And we're here as resources. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
And use that time wisely.
I want you to put your hands on top of your head like this for a minute. I'm going to say something that might make your head explode that I know you've heard because I've heard it too. But I don't watch television, man.
I say to people, what kind of career do you want? Because what happens is they come in, they book a promo without watching television, and then see, I don't need to watch TV. I told you I don't need to watch TV. And then there's crickets for a year. Then I get the phone call going, gee, you know, when I first went to work with so-and-so, I booked a promo right out of the gate. And then I didn't book anything for a year.
Yeah.
It's investment. You need to invest in it.
And maybe you can write it off. Well, I only watch, so this is part of my career. So I needed that huge screen TV, and yeah, I know I love football, but I'm studying the announcers there and the commercials that they run. I want to do beer commercials. That's my thing.
That's my thing. I need to go and invest. I need to do some research.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Our buddy Jay Preston here just sent a blast about
Jay.
you boys in the VOC newsletter. Mr. Walsh, can you tell everyone about how you look at the voiceover in terms of a TV screen demonstration?
Thanks, Jay. Okay, my screen is a little different here because it's not as wide. I'm not doing widescreen today. What Jay's referring to is I basically, in my twisted brain, decided to break out the TV screen as basically the 4 different quadrants of voiceover. And so this goes back to true telling, the fact that regardless of what part of voiceover you've coached in, whether it's commercial and promo and trailer and e-learning, narration, I don't care what it is, your read sits in different perspectives. So I've got a square screen going here. So let's just take commercial, for example, which is the bread and butter of every team. Oh, thank you. There we go. Now I got my widescreen.
Got tired of looking at me, huh?
No, where'd you go? Commercial voiceover actually sits on either side of the screen. In other words, is if you're like leaning against the screen, you say, we picked 2 laundry detergents, A and B. He chose A, she chose B. It's like you're leaning against the screen and having a conversation. Now, this is the same thing true of retail. That's still commercial. The energy is higher, still a conversation happening, coming out on either side of the screen. If you're talking about promo, as we were just talking about a few minutes ago, that promo is more of an event. Any kind of promo you hear is always an event. So promo jumps into tonight, tomorrow, coming up next. There's an element to promo where that there's an ultimate urgency where the read isn't always really huge, but there's what I call it's a forward projection. In other words, there's a forward presence to it, not projection, but a presence. Now, narration. Narration sits at the bottom of the screen. My fingers are going all over the place. I'm trying to figure out how to balance them here. But it sits at the bottom of the screen and goes across the screen like a timeline. The thing about narration is things happen slowly in narration, commercial. Things in narration happen frame by frame by frame. This happens, then this happens, and this happens. And the one thing you want to make sure doesn't happen in narration is the read steps on top of the visual. In other words, if the visual is here on screen, you don't want the read to be so big that it blocks out the visuals you were trying to say on screen. Last piece, trailer. Trailer is psychological in nature, and trailer threads behind the screen. So when the read is, one of the characteristics of the trailer that's so key is the word resonance, which is, if you guys know what it is, it's the mask of your face, that the vibration of the sound you're producing from the skull literally is coming out of the mask. Don LaFontaine, God rest his soul, was, and I think it was either Jim Tasker or Paul Papert said this, that his voice was technically measured and was shown to have the perfect amount of resonance cut through any form of audio production.
Yeah.
You know that, Dave?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it slides right through.
The amazing thing about Don, too, was, well, beyond the fact that he was just the best person you could ever want to meet. Let me bring myself back here a little bit. Yeah, there. I'm on the other side now.
That's all right.
He was just an amazingly wonderful guy, very generous, but he was just so good. And that was his voice. He wasn't changing anything.
Nothing.
And so many people have come behind him and, well, how can I mess up my voice so I can get the Don LaFontaine thing?
Totally.
And, you can hold it for a little bit, but if it's not you, sooner or later, issues. Let's see.
Issues.
Yeah. Let's see. Walter Williams here. Question for both Daves. As a voice actor, do you prefer to play heroes or villains?
I will defer to you, sir.
You know what? I prefer both. Oftentimes, villains are more interesting to play. If you're playing the boring good guy, but we've come to the age of protagonists. So often the hero is only a hero because of circumstances and which side you are on. The hero may have once been a bad guy. The hero may not really want to be a hero. He's thrown into it. I'll look at the character I'm best known for, Lee Everett. College professor, found his wife cheating, killed her and the lover. Now he's off to prison. The zombie apocalypse frees him, and the thing that drove him is, I've ruined my life. I've done this horrible thing. I'm worthless. And meeting this little girl and taking care of her is redemption for him. He wasn't a bad guy before, but he was a guy that did something terrible that he can't even quite forgive himself for.
Right.
So we're looking at a lot of those, the Tony Sopranos of the world. I remember that being one of the first real protagonists that wasn't really a great guy, but somehow we found a way to love him, looking at him inside his family. So, interesting characters are what I like to play more than the good guy or the bad guy.
Yeah, I think that the depth to that in terms of what you can bring to the characters like that, like you said, this is one of the most memorable characters for you. But when the characters, or in terms of whatever part of voiceover did, if it's an interesting story, if it's an interesting character, you were invested in it. It couldn't be any more delicious.
Yeah.
And for me, I what's that?
I'm hanging on your words, man.
Yeah, I'm just like, I mean, for me, I played, a number of more heroic characters in video games and animation. But for me, really, in terms of going from villains to heroes, I find a lot of that in narration, believe it or not. a lot of broadcast narration where you find people in situations where they have gone to the depths of despair, and their ability to find a way out of that, your ability to tell stories, and that really is more of my genre. That's really kind of really more where I excelled, that and still excel. That for me, it's more of taking actors as clients through those hills and valleys of of being the average person going through despair or a dark period, becoming their own form of villain, and then finding the form of redemption. Being able to turn those corners is a very tricky thing to do, and depending upon the subject matter, really creates a lot of depth in this character. So for me, that's where I really love playing or telling the stories about heroes. That's really kind of where I found my truth. I really
Okay.
loved.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna, turn a corner here. What's
Go
your
ahead.
studio like? What equipment do you like? What do you use? If you got a booth, or using a Shure SM58.
To be quite frank with you, I have actually decided to coach full time, and I have not been using my booth. I've made that decision a few years ago, because, and as you said at the beginning of the show, it was, I think the guy likes to teach. And for me, that actually has become that's become my calling, my journey, my full-time journey. I had a very, very honest, upfront conversation with my agents about 2 years ago and told them that really the journey I've had, Dave, to be honest with you, it feeds me every day more.
Yeah.
It truly does. To be able to take people on a journey, new places in their careers, feeds me in a way now. And I'll be honest with you, if I didn't go through what I went through, I wouldn't probably feel this way. But I painted the windows black so much, and I never shared these things with you or other people, where I really thought my world was over. Because if I wasn't my successful career, I don't know who I would have been. So I wandered, and I've never said this to anybody. It's the first time I've said it publicly. I really went wandering. I was coaching. I was happy of what I was doing for other people. My voiceover career was improving again because my voice was better. But once I reached a certain level, I found an emptiness for myself. But the joy was coming from watching other people turn the corners. And I really had to have a long conversation with my partner and with myself and say, something, this is where I need to be now. So that's really what I'm doing full time. And I keep my hand in every day with new scripts, with casting directors, with agents. I keep the conversations and the dialogue with agents across the country, because that's the world I came from before I did voiceover. I was in the studio system at Paramount. So networking in Hollywood was my thing. So even as a voice actor, I was always friends and acquaintances with agents who weren't my agents. And so now in coaching, it's come back tenfold to me. That investing in those relationships, managers that were mine and not, and agents mine and not, really have become beneficial, because I can have the conversations with agents about my clients in ways that I can pick up the phone and call agents and go, you need to hear this. I want your thoughts on this, and vice versa with the client. So I find myself now more as a strategist for my clients, as opposed to coaching them every day only. It's an entire career strategy.
It's interesting that you say that. One, I resisted teaching for a long time, partially because my mother used to tell me all the time, "Oh, son, I know you want to do all these artistic things, but you should get your teaching degree and something to fall back on."
Like, no, I don't want
No,
to.
I don't want that. And from time to time, I would take on a student that, a friend of mine, for free. And of course, I found out that when you do it for free, they don't care. Uh,
Yeah.
it's been a number of years now, but I derive a great deal of satisfaction out of teaching and watching people grow and helping them, and seeing the light come on.
Yeah.
Sometimes. So I get where you're coming from, but I'm not ready to hang up my microphone yet.
No, I don't blame you. I would be lying to you if there wasn't a piece of me that is there every day, is there every day in the booth. Who knows that there may be where that happens, but I think for me, with this particular program and what I'm bringing to it for myself, and it's not ego boasting, it's really more of, I can't believe how I feel every day when I finish. I'm never tired. I feel like I could go again another hour. And what I bring to these talent every day, that's my journey. I celebrate your journey. I think that's, and for me, it's never saying to a coach, it needs to be the thing where you hang it up. No, you ride that train till the end. Absolutely. It was
Well, that wasn't
not
a train,
Amtrak.
but
I don't know what that was, but that was close enough. It's kind of a
choo
hard
choo.
ride.
Got a question
Choo-choo.
here from J. Horace Black, Dave and Dave W. Hello, hello. He likes to repeat himself. Powerful
Hey,
show
Jay.
once again. To Dave Walsh, do you have any online workshops or anything coming up? Missed your connection with you when I was in LA the last time. Are you still doing one-on-one still? I think that's what he meant. If yes, how do we get your schedule?
Okay, really simple. First of all, I'm not doing any workshops for the rest of 2020. I'm doing several
Did
shows.
something happen in 2020?
It's something, what? Nothing else. I've done pretty much what I'm going to do for workshops for the rest of the year. Next year, we do have several coming up, and that's going to be announced very soon. One-on-ones, absolutely. Best thing for you to do is to shoot me an email at dave@walshvoiceovercoaching.com. That's WALSE, voiceovercoaching.com.
You're going to get a lot of calls. I want 10%, damn it.
Damn it. I'll send it to you through Square.
Oh, there you go.
PayPal?
There you go. I had a question for you. I get from a lot of my students is they're auditioning, and I don't know which one I should send, which, I did this take and I've been working on this, and what do they want? What do I send? I went back and I listened, and I still don't know which one to send. How do we get people over that?
First of all, it's coming to grips with you. It's actually looking yourself in the mirror and realizing what value you have, and stop worrying about what they want, and I want you to start really focusing more on how it feels. And that's really hard sometimes for people in a business that is so audio focused. Everything's about sound. But the reason that people are coming to you, to be gravitating towards you, if you can believe it or not, is the story you're telling, the purpose behind what you're saying. Why is it you, Dave Fennoy, telling the story? Why is Dave Walsh telling it? Dave Preston, who's telling the story? And that truth about the story, the thing that drives the read. And so when you feel, because your soul is a muscle, right? And you can feel the difference when the story feels connected. How many of us can know when we walk out of the booth and it doesn't feel good? I do.
Yeah.
And there's also the times when it feels awesome and you're in the zone. Those are the reads you send. Then I hear from the client, but I didn't book it. That's okay. Because the goal of this work is it's connection. You're walking out of the booth confident every time you speak. It's the road to success. Guaranteed. Because in life, if you had to have conversations continually over and over again with people where you weren't being heard, you weren't being valued, you get the hell away from the conversation.
Yeah.
They're of no benefit to you. So our goal in the booth is connection. It's pure, authentic connection and how it feels, the joy, things you said before. I'm not ready to hang it up. Why would you? It's joy.
Yeah.
That's the thing that you get from the work. It's the joy of it.
And when the joy is gone, you should be gone too.
Bingo.
Just, one of the things that I share with my students about that, which one do I send, and I thought it was great, but I didn't book it, is they're going to be listening to a bunch of really good performances that have gotten down to that last 10 or 15 people that they're listening to, or and then that last two
Yeah.
or three. And then it isn't about your read. It's about, their reaction to it. In video games, it could be any number of things. Well, your voice with this other person doesn't sound so good. Or, well, Dave Fennoy's been on so much stuff. Let's find a new voice, because that day that's how they're feeling. Or how many Twitter followers you have.
Right.
The reasons that people get hired are so varied. Your job is to turn in great performances. I said there are no auditions, there are only great performances. And when you do that, one of the things I notice now is often I get the call from my agent or the email, hey, you booked that such and such a thing. And, any idea when the session's going to be? Oh, they're going to use your audition. Just turn in great auditions. Sooner or later, it's your turn, and after a while, you begin to find out that it's your turn more often than you thought it was, because now you're being successful here, and people want that thing to work for their thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I actually believe it takes a while for the industry to hear you. But if you're auditioning a lot, those auditions are going to different casting directors' ears, different clients' ears. Sooner or later, if it's good, they're going to start booking you.
Yeah, and you don't know which of those is going to be the one that's going to do it. I think that it's just a matter of continuing just to keep bringing what you bring, honing that craft, knowing and understanding who you are in the work. And the more that you do that, for what we talked about earlier about persistence and consistency, it's going to click. I've seen this happen. I don't know if you've seen this with some of the people you coach. There's that, you and I had this in our careers where the switch flipped, where suddenly one day at home, there was a connection to what you were doing that created a confidence. I can't predict when that's going to happen for someone, but I sure as heck know when it does. And all of a sudden, it starts to change and to shift. And as that happens, one of my first clients, my success stories was Dan Hottrop. And I've known Dan for almost 10 years. And so one of the things that happened with Dan was he really started to grasp the whole idea, especially with narration and with commercial. I was saying, you need to be connected, Dan, to the story. You have to be connected to what you're saying. And the more that he worked at it, honed it, and all of a sudden one day, Geo came calling, Smithsonian started calling, Discovery started calling, and the switch had flipped. So I don't use Dan as the pinnacle, but I'm saying that what I've started to see with people is when that change happens, they're like, here it is.
Yeah, when it's you talking.
When it's you talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
No matter what the style.
No matter what the style, when you're either yourself or the character that you're telling the story is, but full commitment to the moment, as opposed to standing outside to read and listening to yourself talk. I'm trying to hear myself, trying to walk and chew gum at the same time.
No. Yeah, that little judgy voice.
Yeah, it's right back here.
And the person who's going to be listening to that audition is hearing that judgy voice, and you don't know it. They don't know what it is that's bothering them. But when you're in that, oh, geez, is that okay? Oh, here comes that word. Oh, this sounds pretty good. All of that shows up here.
Yeah.
So you have to let it go. You have to let it go.
You do. And it's also the template when you learn the proper way to read a commercial, the proper way to read a promo, a piece of trailer, a piece of narration. There's a template that we all have learned. You hit certain words, you hit certain phrases, here comes the housekeeping, here comes the legal, here comes the whatever. But then people start to lean on the template. Oh, that's right, I have to hit that one. It's coming up, I'm going to hit it. Versus just tell the story, and you're naturally going to find the groove into where the template falls.
Yeah. Let's see. I'll get another one. Myron again. Look at that picture. Nice looking family. Should I ever expect my agent to comment on a specific audition, even if I don't book the gig? Feedback is crucial. What space should you be in if you don't get the feedback from agents?
First of all, expect not to get feedback, first and foremost, because their day is spent trying to sell and trying to make things happen. They can't always comment, so they can't really do that with everybody. But if you ask for particular feedback on certain reads, they will give it to you. The thing to never, and one of the things I say to my agents, or said to my agents, one day I said, how many of my reads are actually getting submitted? Because I think there's a misnomer that actors believe just because I audition for it, it's getting sent. Not necessarily. So you can have, but every once in a while, do a check-in with your agents and say, how are the reads? How is this particular read? And what are you hearing? Or there are times you think my agent's not listening to anything, and then all of a sudden one day you get the email, do me a favor, Dave, can you, it's a little such and such, and you're like, they're actually listening.
Yeah.
So it can be on either side, but keeping an open relationship with your agents as much as you can, and not expecting a huge amount day to day because they're trying to run a business.
Yeah,
You're
I
one
think if
slogan.
you're trying to talk to your agent every day, you become a pain in the butt, and after a while, oh, when is this girl's contract up?
Yeah,
We can,
what is she doing? Yeah,
um, that's interesting. I never expect feedback on my auditions unless something is wrong. Oh, it's like,
yeah,
oh, well, you really missed the point here, and even then, they're busy. They're very
yeah,
busy taking care of a lot of
yeah,
other things. But every now and then, I'll get a feedback. Oh man, I really like this read. Does it mean I book it? No, not
yeah,
necessarily. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And
right.
you have to get to that point where you're not living in, oh god, gotta book this, I gotta book this, and I can't say that I'm completely immune to it. Every now and then that gig comes up that, oh, this could change my life,
Yeah,
and
no.
and I think sometimes when I don't get that thing, it's because I wanted it too much,
Yeah, I
and
yeah, I agree. I think, and I say this to agents a lot too, be careful about telling the actor, you know, something, you get this, it's big. I know that I'm like,
why did you
because what
tell
it
me
now,
that?
I get the call and it's like, I heard this is really big. If I get it, can I work on this with you? Which I love doing. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
But the agent's just as excited, or the manager's just as excited as the talent. So I would never tell someone not to do it. It's just that actors will internalize it, like you said. This is a big thing. It could change my life. You know, it's you don't want to not celebrate it, but you also don't want to sabotage yourself.
Yeah. I get a number of students that will buy, 15 minutes, half an hour for me to work with them on an audition. And it always helps, they say. And it's the same reason that I will work with you, or I'll work with a Mary Lynn Wisner or Nancy Wolfson or somebody.
Absolutely.
Because what you're looking for are ears and a brain besides your own that you trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because sometimes it's hard to be objective about yourself.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, I think of the number of people who've had a great gig, especially in promo, where they've had this read, that read was working, it was working for months, years. Now everybody always loses their gig at some point, and it's
All
a new
do.
sound, it's a new thing, and they don't have that new sound. And now they've got to retool. Nobody's calling them anymore. And that's a person that needs to come to you or me or one of the other fine teachers in town to
Yeah.
help them stay honest with themselves, but bring themselves into a new way of approaching copy.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think my two new words that I use a lot with clients now are new chapter. I've had this conversation with several clients during COVID. I had them before COVID too, where they're in that fork of the road. They're exactly where you just mentioned, where they're kind of going, I was the flavor of the moment, flavor of the year, flavor of the last 5 years, whatever, and now can't get arrested. Or get very few pieces, and what am I doing wrong? You're not doing anything wrong. One thing I tried to encourage and kind of impart on them is it's rewriting the chapter, it's rewriting the book now, as opposed to trying to fit yourself into what doesn't work anymore. What's the new chapter? Where do we write this? I'm telling you, it creates a new feeling of a sense of accomplishment, a sense of empowerment. Not that I'm trying to blow smoke or trying to kill the lily. It's more like saying to them, there is a new chapter to write. There's opportunities in every part of voiceover. Are we all going to be the 25-year-old ingenue? No. But the thing about COVID right now, 40 plus voices are working.
Yeah.
They're working.
We need somebody who's grounded, somebody who has confidence and gives us a feeling of safety. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, totally. And that's coming. That is such a common direction on copy, promo, commercial, narration. It's everywhere.
Yeah. Let's see. I got a couple of questions here. Rob Dinsmore, I'd like to be in more VO workout groups than the one I do with my 9 to 5. Doesn't get in the way. What would you guys know what's the best way to do that? The VoiceOver Collective, some other voiceover groups on YouTube and whatnot, start becoming a part of the voiceover community. People are your best resource, and that's where you will find information you don't have, people who can help you that you don't know now. So involve yourself. And the people who do the best at that, who benefit the most, are those who are also trying to help other people. Another one here, Jen Henry.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, Jen. Almost exactly a year since the Sovas weekend workshop with you, I considered myself a risk taker until you told me, I want to see you take more risks. Switch flipped. I couldn't have imagined this this year. Well, there you go.
That's awesome. Yep. No, I think that's such a key for all of us, is taking more risks. Is that, one thing that COVID has really taught a lot of us, myself included, is opening new opportunities, taking more risks in places that you never thought you would.
How'd you get into voiceover, by the way?
Believe it or not, the first person I ever met was Tom Pinto. And the way I got into voiceover was I had done, radio shows in high school and college, and I grew up with the microphone. I loved creating radio shows and promos and things at home and all of that. And so my uncle worked for Columbia Records. He was the vice president of promotion for the whole Northeast United States. And one of the things is he worked with jocks his whole life and said, you want to be a jock, you're going to have to basically live out of a suitcase, and you have to be able to move from market to market to market. Well, I wanted to move to LA. That was my dream. So graduating college, I went to television instead. That was my second love. And one day, as I was working, I went to Samuel French and I found a book that said Word of Mouth. It was written by Sue Blue and Molly and Mullen. And I still have the book. And I opened the book when there were all these pictures of these voice actors inside. It was pictures that were taken in Voice Track West when Cindy Akers owned it, the West. And I went back to my office. I was working for Art Uleen, who was the doctor on the Today Show at the time. I was a publicist. And I was going through the book, and a friend of mine was on the phone, and I mentioned Tom Pinto's name. The woman in the next queue, Susan Castillo, comes over to the desk and said, you just mentioned Tom Pinto. And I said, yes. And she said, that's my brother. And she said, our building, 3 buildings down from Voice Tracks. And she said, would you like to meet him? And I said, well, yeah, I'd love to. So I met Tom and Nick O'Mana. They were my first coaches, my first teachers, 30 years ago. And those guys, I am indebted to them beyond.
Yeah.
And so they were my first teachers. They were my first entree into business.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
Wow.
I had one more question here. The equation of communication.
Oh, hello. Hi, love.
Hey, handsome.
How you doing?
I'm better now. Look at that big old smile. Where's your, oh, you got your color beard too. Listen, I don't want to
That
interrupt.
made my color beard.
I just want to say
It's good to
hi,
see you.
again.
There's certain people that I have on that she's just got to come say
Oh my
hello
God,
to,
I
and
love that you
so
say
you're
that.
on the list.
I love it. I feel so important. It's so good to
Yeah.
see big
You're looking good.
cyber hugs.
Okay, I'm out.
Mwah.
You guys classing, so love you. You got to come through and
Love
do
you,
some
baby.
COVID distancing wine and cheese. Bye.
Oh, I could go for wine and cheese right now.
Oh boy! Oh
Where's the
boy!
vino? We should have had vino during this.
Well, I didn't say you couldn't.
It's true. We should have done it.
Let's see.
You-
Before I let you out of here, I got another question from somebody else. John Simmons. I'm new to voiceover. Never really knew it was a thing till I started streaming on Twitch, and many people were saying you need to be using your voice. Did some research, and now here we are. As a new person in this, what's the best piece of wisdom for someone starting out?
Great question, John. First of all, welcome, and I'm glad you decided to invest in it. That's awesome. I would say the biggest advice to you or the wisdom to give you is commit. Commit to it, follow through with it. You know, it'll be a tough go, but it's an amazing business, an incredible business. And the community of people, Dave Fennoy included, we have been so lucky to have unbelievable support in this world of amazing performer, have such access. You guys now have such an access to people like Dave, myself, and so many amazing coaches in our business where you had to live in LA and New York to be able to access them 30 years ago when I started. Dave and I were first kind of coming up. It was just that being at the right place at the right time. Now, because of the access you have to so much, there really isn't any reason to quit. So I would just say to you, commit to it and just enjoy yourself.
Yeah, and there really is more work now, I think, than ever before. And one, in the promo business, I'm looking at how many stations there are now from when we were younger. In animation and video games, there are more games now than ever before. This industry is still young. It's still growing. Audiobooks, huge. I'm not wanting to do a whole bunch of audiobooks, but that's a big open door to people. Explainer videos, corporate narration. There are so many opportunities. I had Raul Aldana on from Zoo Digital a couple weeks ago. Dubbing. We used to think of dubbing as, okay, well, I'm doing anime, that's dubbing, and our Latin brothers and sisters are dubbing stuff from English into Spanish. Well, it's a world market now. We're dubbing from all languages to all other languages. There are many open doors. Sometimes I say, well, there's the high-profile work and the not-so-high-profile work, but it all pays green money.
It does, absolutely, like my wall.
All you need is a dollar sign on there.
All you need is a dollar, and I'm good to go. But you're right. I mean, there's so much opportunity now where it's all storytelling, and so the belief that this job is as much as this job, or this one doesn't pay, but the other one pays. It all in the end, like Dave said, it's all green. But again, the joy of this is the key. The joy of storytelling, the joy of being able to get people to be happy, sad, empowered, resilient, whatever it is that we do as quick talent. That's our gift. That's our true talent. And that's the thing that we really need to kind of bring to the work every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
Good
we
stuff.
have hit the 7 o'clock mark. I like to keep it right in.
Unbelievable. That was pretty fast.
Yeah, that was pretty fast. You know, I knew you were going to be a great guest, and Dave, you just were fantastic. I like to think we're all kind of teaching the same thing, and in so many ways we are. But I love your approach. The idea of the true tale of finding your authentic self to speak these words, to tell that story. I can't stress enough how much that is the essence of our business, no matter what it is that you're doing.
Truly is. It truly is. And I couldn't agree with you more. And again, thank you for the support. All of you guys to have the support of someone like Dave, who's a good friend, an incredible professional. I truly, I mean this. That's worth its weight, and I just so honored to be able to share this.
The check's in the mail. The check's in the mail.
Oh, for God's sakes! Yeah. But again, my friend, thank you so much for having me.
And as you go off here, let's see, Sophia Cruz, thank you, Dave and Dave.
Hello, Sophia.
Kimberly Woods, thank you both. Les
Hey,
Holmes, I
Kimberly.
enjoyed it, guys. Learned so much. Thanks.
Thanks,
Jason Leach, thanks to both of you. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Dave.
Michael Sessoms, thanks, Double Daves, for a while. Double Daves, I like that.
Double Daves.
Whenever we're out someplace now, it's Double Daves. And thank you
Daves.
both from Liverman. And let's see. Oh, boy, you're getting a lot of thanks here. And Van, that was really cool. Thank you both.
Thanks, Van.
And I thank you.
Steve. Yeah.
And we'll have to work on that wine and cheese in the backyard around the fire there, socially distanced.
I'm in, dude. I'll bring a Double Dave T-shirt. Trust me.
All right. And anything you want to leave with? Might want to give your website again.
Website is walshvoiceovercoaching.com. WALSH voiceovercoaching.com. Please reach out, anybody, and just remember to, and I say this to people all the time, to never let anybody silence your voice. Know that your voice has value each and every day of your life. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm going to say goodbye to you and take the camera all for myself and remind you this will be broadcast or it will live on YouTube at Dave Fennoy Voiceover Training. If you're interested in working with me with anything, voiceover lessons, or to find out when I'll be doing webinars, hither and yon, sign up at davefennoy.com and you will find out even about things like this that happens every Wednesday. Once again, thanks to my friend and wonderful voiceover teacher, Dave Walsh, and we will see you next Thursday, or next Wednesday. Thursday, where'd that come from? Anyway, I've been doing this too long. See you next Wednesday, y'all.